Okay. All right. It is July 27th, 2021 at 7 p.m. I call this meeting of the Wellfleet Select Board to order in accordance with the temporary suspension and enhancement of open meeting law requirements by the General Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The first topic or the first agenda item is open session and public comments. Public comments must be brief. Board will not deliberate or vote on any matter raised solely during announcements and public comments. Let's see, do we have any? All right, I see Will.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Chequesset Yacht Club for hosting our event for us the other day for our grand award ceremony. I called them up last minute and man, they pulled out all the stops for us, and I just really wanted a big thank you to them from the town.
Yes, I would second that as well. They did it on really short notice, and it was great that they did that for us. Okay, any other public comments at this time?
Yes, Kevin Coakley. I don't know how to raise my hand here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Public comment is the use of private businesses on town property. The area by the town landing by the harbor that's used for Max has an additional 4 picnic tables, bringing the total number of picnic tables on that 60 by 30 piece of land to 14 picnic tables with a maximum seating capacity of 8 people per table, which would bring that to a total of 112 people you can fit in that little area. I think that should be noted in the use of businesses on town property.
Well, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Any others? Okay, so seeing none, moving on to the open meeting law complaints filed by Judah Earn on July 8th and July 15th. So I would like to have Greg Corbo speak to this.
Good evening. Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, my name is Greg Corbo from Town Council's office at KP Law. And I'm meeting with you this evening to talk about 2 open meeting law complaints that have been filed against this board from a Ms. Jude Ahern. The first complaint relates to the advertisement for the board's June 22nd meeting. And it is alleged that the public hearing notice for a request for extension of shellfish grant did not accurately describe the area in question. The second complaint was received on July 15th and relates to the board's July 13th meeting, and similarly alleges that the board's advertisement for a public hearing held during that meeting was not published sufficiently in advance of the meeting. With respect to the allegations of the open meeting law requires that you provide certain notice of all public meetings by posting a notice with the town clerk 48 hours prior to the meeting, and that notice must contain a list of the topics that the chair can reasonably anticipate will be discussed, with sufficient specificity that a reasonable person can look at that meeting notice and understand what is going to be talked about. What the open meeting law does not address are issues or requirements that may be contained in other statutes or regulations or laws, in particular with respect to laws that require notice of public hearings that might be greater than 48 hours, or details in public hearing notices that may require more detail than is required by the open meeting law. And the decisions of the Attorney General, who is charged with enforcing and interpreting the law, have made very clear that they do not enforce these other requirements. So I've looked at the notices for these two meetings, and in my opinion, they are sufficiently detailed to comply with the requirements of the open meeting law, and they were published sufficiently in advance of these two meetings. So it is my opinion that the board did not violate the open meeting law in any respect, in regards to how it published its notice of those meetings. And so the next step for the board, if you're in agreement, is to take a vote here to acknowledge receipt of these complaints, and then to authorize me as town council to respond on your behalf along the lines that I've just laid out.
And can you speak to the requirements for the public hearing notices?
Um, so it wasn't abundantly clear to me from the allegations in the open meeting law complaint what the issue was. With respect to the June 22nd meeting, it appears that there's an allegation that there may have been a typographical error in the public hearing notice, that may not have correctly identified the particular shellfish grant area that was going to be discussed. But when I looked at the board's meeting notice and the materials that were in the board's packet, it seemed to me that it was pretty clear that, to anyone who was interested in it, that they would know what particular shellfish grant areas were being discussed. So, again, while we're not necessarily here to discuss that particular issue, it doesn't appear to me that there was any issue with respect to the notice of public hearing. Likewise, with respect to the second meeting on July 13th, the allegations were that the advertisement was not published 10 days or more in advance. And while there is a requirement in there that the first publication must be 10 days prior to the time fixed for the hearing, a person who wishes to challenge that type of notice typically has to show that they have suffered harm as a result of the insufficient amount of notice, or that they've been prejudiced by that. And again, this is just in the context of an open meeting law complaint, but members of the public generally do not have standing to make these types of challenges. It would have to be someone who was the subject of the public hearing, alleging that their rights were prejudiced as a result of not having received sufficient notice. And I haven't heard anything of that nature being raised.
Okay. And then I would like to give Jude opportunity to speak to this, but understand that there's certain needs for decorum. And if the standards of decorum are exceeded upon, I will ask Rebecca to mute. So Jude, if you would like to speak.
Thank you, Chair. So what you're saying is the public wasn't given sufficient notice by Massachusetts law, but not by open meeting law. So you're not addressing that. You're just saying that it didn't violate the 48 hours of the open meeting law. But all along since March, when Devasto has been pushing this, he's been giving us insufficient notice. And I've been asking for 4 months now about that. So the bottom line is that it was published online in the Cape Cod Times on a Saturday of a holiday weekend, exactly 10 days before, if you don't count the day that it was filed. The town hall has been closed, so it's supposed to be hosted in the hallway. We couldn't even have gotten into that building until the following Tuesday. So they're definitely in violation, but are you saying that you're just not going to address that and I'm left as a member of the public to prove that I've been harmed? We paid $2 million for that property and these extensions are into that property. So we're all being harmed by this. Thank you.
Greg, if you would care to respond, you
Yes,
don't
thank
have
you.
to if you need to, if you,
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, again, it appears that there is a factual dispute as to whether or not sufficient notice under Chapter 130, Section 60 was provided. And again, it would be up to someone who has shown harm in order to have a claim. And we're not here to discuss that. We're here to discuss the open meeting law. And it is my opinion that there's no question that there is no violation of the open meeting law here.
okay. Helen,
Yeah, I have some embarrassing questions, I mean, for myself. Is Nancy Chavetta here? Through you, Ryan.
Yes, I am.
I have a question. Really embarrassing. Don't shellfish related hearings have to be posted 14 days before the hearing?
It's 10 days.
10 days. Okay, so what's the matter with me? The second question is this. My memory is that we use the Cape Cod Times, which publishes every day, at times when the weekly paper of record that we ordinarily use, we can't make that addition in time to have it posted properly. So right now, given that I am aware that we added the Provincetown Independent as a paper of record, can somebody state for the public and for me which newspapers we are committed to using for posting meetings besides the Independent, please? Through you to anybody, Ryan.
This is
Um,
Nancy.
yep.
The answer that I could give is that in our regulations, it simply says in a local newspaper. It does not specify whether it's a daily or a weekly. And in my experience, it's been all of the above.
So
and
what about the open meeting law?
sorry, 1 second, Helen. And to follow that up on when we had the Provincetown Independent as a newspaper of record, Jeannie Mack said that the other two are the Cape Cod Times and the Provincetown Banner, that she prefers to post in the weeklies as opposed to the Cape Cod Times, because Cape Cod Times is a little bit more expensive, but there are times when that she needs to be able to post in the Cape Cod Times.
Okay, thank you for laying that out. I felt it was an important part of this. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Chair, may I speak, Ryan, please?
I would like to give the other board members the opportunity first, and then I'll come back to you, Jude.
Thank you.
So, John?
Yeah, in relation to the what's on the actual complaint, the quote from Chapter 130 about being published in the print newspaper, such as the Cape Codder. I get what the town council is saying about the letter of the law, and what I have to say maybe doesn't exactly address what we have to decide right now, but this seems to me to be part and parcel of the general tenor of how things have been done for too long. Where we've fudge the corners and skip the corners and, well, it's a day here or a day there. It's troubling, and I think we have an opportunity to correct this. And I think it's part and parcel of the other things we need to correct about how we do business here in Wellfleet. So with that in mind, yeah, well, we need to address this, I suppose as per the town council, but I think the overall picture here, we need to focus on. That's all I've got.
Okay, and then Mike, are you speaking as a private citizen or a member of the board?
A member of the board.
Okay,
I'm just speaking as a member of the board. Basically, there's some allegations in the complaint that are completely inaccurate. First and foremost, I'd just like to say that public hearings that are brought to the agenda are brought by administration. They could be removed by the chair, I suppose, but they are placed on the agenda by the principal clerk through the shellfish constable or somebody who requests a public hearing for a license, a liquor license, a renewal of a license. Those are not put on the agenda by the chair. And secondly, the 10 days is, I have here from KP Law on how to conduct a public hearing. It says substantive law will dictate when notices need to be sent and to whom. In the absence of a statutory requirement, 10 days notice is generally acceptable for due process purposes. At a minimum, the notice must comply with the open meeting law by posted at least 48 hours prior to the hearing, except in an emergency calculated as required by law. And that's in the process of public hearings in a document published by KP Law. But just to be clear, I did not, as chair, place those public hearings on the agenda.
okay, thank you. And then back to you, Jude.
So please tell me who did?
Mike, would you like?
Executive clerk.
The principal clerk places the public hearings.
And and who tells that person to do it? She or he just knows?
Well, somebody requests a public hearing. either
So
the
so
constable-
walk me through what happened, Mike. Tell me exactly,
Jude,
because
Jude,
I'm speaking actually, and it
Yep.
needs to also be in 3 public places, so I want to know what those public places were. And I am talking about Massachusetts law, section 60, which nobody wants to talk about. You violated a law and you all know it. And
Okay.
you know what, Devasto? Tell me
Rebecca?
how you do an agenda then, please.
Rebecca?
Enlighten us all.
Can you? Thank you. All right. So the question is, do we have town council respond to the open meeting law complaint as outlined by Greg Corbo? Do we need a motion on this, Greg?
Nancy had her hand up. I don't know if she
Oh,
wants.
okay. I didn't see it.
It was
Um,
just if you wanted me to do any answering, it's up to you.
Um,
Answering of the process.
Where were the 3 public places?
Nancy, I'll allow you to answer them and then I'll go back to Greg.
Okay, so just to be clear, when something that has to do with shellfishing and grants in particular, but any shellfish agenda item that is proposed for the select board agenda should come through the shellfish constable, and both of these did. And I email the packet of information, or first I might email and ask to get on a specific agenda, and then I email the packet of information to Rebecca and GD Mac Jean McLaughlin, and often I'll copy the town administrator. Not
What
all,
did you do in this particular?
Yeah,
so I requested to have these hearings on the agenda, and I sent that to Rebecca Eldridge and Jean McLaughlin. And then Jean is responsible for advertising the public hearings and for posting the notices.
okay.
And when did,
And then, Greg, back to my question.
Yes, to you, Mr. Chair. If you are so inclined, I would recommend the following motion. I move that the board vote to acknowledge receipt of the open meeting law complaints filed on July 8th, 2021 and July 15th, 2021, and to authorize town council to respond on the board's behalf.
I so
Okay.
move.
Is there a second? Okay,
Can I've had my hand up, Ryan,
okay, go ahead, Helen.
in a discussion moment. I do want to say that in general practice, given that what Nancy said is absolutely accurate, if we have a shellfish issue, it gets generated through her, should always get generated through her. But otherwise, and in tandem with that, the chair of any committee, which is what we call everything here now in Wellfleet because of the charter, every committee's chair is the chef that organizes the menu, given things that are time sensitive, given things that other board members want to have on there, and so on and so forth. In other words, I can't just call Rebecca as one member of this board and put something on there. So that should be put into this discussion along with what Nancy said.
I've already had that discussion. So,
Thank you.
yep. So can we have a roll call vote?
Janet, I.
John, aye.
Michael, I.
Ryan, aye. Helen?
Helen, I, but I usually go last, but whenever you want to put me
You,
as.
you are
So,
going last.
Yeah, that was last. So motion carries 5-0. One second. Where am I on the agenda? Okay, so with the permission of the board, I would actually like to take the COVID-19 updates and recommendations out of order and take that now instead of the appointments and updates.
Yes.
Okay, with me.
Okay, so I talked to, so just so you're aware, Hillary is unable to join us tonight. I did speak with her before this meeting. I've actually talked to her a number of times in the last few days. So to update everybody, the Provincetown cluster now has 756 COVID cases associated with it, only some of whom reside within Provincetown or Barnstable County. The highly transmissible Delta variant has been confirmed in the Provincetown cluster. Wellfleet has 12 active cases as of today, some of whom worked in Provincetown and some of who did not. And it's unclear where those who did not work in Provincetown contracted COVID. The CDC has issued an advisory this afternoon recommending masking in indoor spaces in counties classified as having high or substantial rates of transmission. Barnstable County has been classified as having a high transmission rate by the CDC. This classification is based on having a positive case count of over 100 per 100,000 residents or having a test positivity rate of 10% or higher over the last 7 days. The Wellfleet Health Department has received take-home test kits, and these are available to businesses at no cost to test their workforce. These tests can either be picked up at the Wellfleet Health Department, or the health agent can deliver them to your place of business. If you are a business owner or manager of one, and you would like to take advantage of these tests, please call the Wellfleet Health Department at 508-349-0308. Again, 508-349-0308. The Wellfleet Health Department has also been working with the Chamber of Commerce and unaffiliated businesses within the community to strongly encourage or require masking in indoor locations. The Cape Cod National Seashore has also closed the indoor sections of Salt Pond Visitor Center in Eastham and the Province Land Visitors Center in Provincetown. And at this time, I would like to open it to the board. Anyone?
Yeah,
All right,
So-
go ahead, Helen.
yes, we all got a memo from Lemos. And I read it twice. The state is saying, recommending masking indoors. Hillary said she used a different verb. She said it should happen. And I'm wondering if, because this is a general agenda item, if we can actually discuss that now, whether or not we should, during this meeting, have a vote to require masking in public buildings.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, the numbers are staggering. And who likes to wear a mask? I'm very used to it, but I'd like to be able to discuss that now and maybe to hear from staff about it even. Each building, you know, is its own unit in terms of the virus.
Okay, any other board members?
Well, I think we have to be wary and masking indoors. I still do it many places. I still don't go out very many places. Supposedly outdoors is very safe, but if we don't vote on anything tonight, I think we have to really play it week by week.
Okay. So I did talk to Hillary, and the board does have the ability to require masking. It's at the discretion of the board whether or not we want to take action on that tonight. So, John?
You calling on me?
Yep.
Yes, I think we should, and I think at the very least we should do what they're doing in Provincetown, which is to require indoor masking and look at the numbers over the next, I think they picked 5 days to see what the trends are. I'm not exactly clear on how that works, but I think we really need to be proactive on this in view of what's happened. You know, everybody that's in Provincetown came through Wellfleet, and who knows how many people stop off here. All sorts of venues have been very, very full of people, and it's troubling. And I you know, somebody like myself who has to work in different places and is engaging with the public on a fairly regular basis. You know, it puts me at risk, and then I in turn put other people at risk. I think we need to take at least some minimum precautions like masking.
Okay, Mike?
I guess I'm just kind of curious as to whether, I mean, Hillary's not on the meeting, right?
Right.
Yeah. Just in the past, we've sort of gotten a recommendation kind of from the health agent, or stuff has gone through the Board of Health on health related issues. So, I mean, I'm not I'm not saying I wouldn't vote for it tonight, and maybe that's the prudent thing to do. Do we have a number of how many cases are in Wellfleet right now?
12.
12 cases.
Yep.
So that's up substantially from the last week. So I was just kind of throwing it out there. Usually we hear from the health agent or Board of Health on a recommendation, but she did say in the memo that they should be worn indoors. So that's it.
Okay, Helen?
Yes, okay, so that was good, listening to that. Apparently Turo's also considering this tonight. I think that we should vote to mandate masks and to follow what we were given to follow by the Board of Health back in the day when this first started. The fact that we've more than doubled the few cases that were in Wellfleet in the last few days really worries me. And that we also put out a statement that we support businesses that require masking. Because a lot of them have, said, okay, you don't have to do this anymore. And meanwhile, we have people from all over the country coming here and using those businesses. And Justina put it very well last year, that our brand should be that this is a safe place and that we want people not to be getting sick when they come here and that we're not out of this yet. So those are my two thoughts. Require masks and following the guidelines and requirements that were given to us by the Board of Health that have been in place until very recently, once again, and to let businesses know in every way we can through the Chamber of Commerce and so forth, that we really support businesses requiring masks indoors. And the spacing that was required previously.
So, sorry, Mr. Chair, for you to Helen.
Go ahead.
So you recommending we go back to the early pandemic return, work plan that was submitted by the Board of Health?
Yeah, remember, finally, we got a formal work plan. And here's the point. We're on the outer Cape. This is an absolute danger zone for this now. And the fact that there are so many more cases in Provincetown that it's, exponentially increasing at this rate, well, we thought it might happen and it is happening. And it's happening more here on the outer Cape than it is in other places in Massachusetts. It's inconvenient and horrible.
So I would say that requiring masks is one thing. Requiring businesses to update their seating plans in the middle of the summer is going to be quite difficult for many of them. And that's all I'll say on that. So do we have any other, let's see, any other? So
I just had a follow-up question. I mean, I just wanted to clarify with that, with Helen, but I just wanted to make a point, if I may, Mr. Chair.
go ahead.
Just that, I don't think we should be going back to that point because we do have vaccination now, but I think that it's probably appropriate to bring back a masking mandate indoors. But that we need to be able to sort of adapt to the fact that we do have highly vaccinated population, and maybe not try and move forward in a way that makes sense right now, I guess. That's all.
Okay. John?
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I don't think we need to, I don't think we really can ask businesses to go back to the used to be, but just as an example, today I had a charter party out, and I found out that one of them had not been vaccinated. So I required him to keep a mask on, and he did. But that's the danger, is that all of us on the Cape, the vast majority of us have been vaccinated. That we know. But what we don't know is how many of our visitors have been or haven't been. And that's the wild card that we're trying to deal with. And so I think an indoor mask mandate is probably, well, the least we can do, and probably at this point, the most we can do.
Okay.
Ryan,
Do you have anything new to add, Helen?
I do. Of
Okay.
course, otherwise I wouldn't raise my hand. The kids have not all been vaccinated, and they are hanging out with their parents and their parents' friends and their grown-up family a whole lot. Thank you.
Okay. Would anybody care to advance a motion?
I'm just wondering if Charlie has anything to speak on this, as far as like what we just amended, our return to work plan at Town Hall prior to this outbreak. If Charlie has anything to add, if that's all right for you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. I do know that they've already made modifications to some town buildings in their work plan, but go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to talk to Hillary today, but I was just looking at the even the Provincetown document that's in your package. And even that document that indicates that masks are advised indoors when social distances can't be achieved. So it's a fine line. I think relative to, our town buildings, we had talked about opening up our town buildings for a couple of days a week. And I think Wednesday and Thursdays, if I'm not mistaken. My instinct is, I think we should stall, that aspect of it. We've done fine with, in my opinion, with responding to most people's needs, to doing things by appointment. And let's face it, we're really at the beginning of August. So that one thing we might be able to do is just keep our town buildings closed except by appointment for a little bit longer, see what happens through the month of August. But anyway, I did want to just mention that their health advisory talks about masks are advised indoors.
Okay,
So Ryan, I would just like to add something.
go ahead, Janet.
So I am having trouble. I got a new computer and I'm having trouble getting all the bells and whistles going. I am more than happy to vote yes on requiring masks indoors. I'm not comfortable voting on the previous mandates without having them right, or with previous regulations, I will say, without having them right in front of me. So that's how I feel.
Okay, would somebody care to advance a motion, or should I?
I move that the town of Wellfleet adopts wearing of mask policy in all buildings and when not socially distanced.
So,
Can I amend that?
yes,
Yes.
please.
I move I move to initiate a masking. I didn't write it down, so. So I think that I guess the point is, I think we need to do sort of an advisory like Provincetown has. And that they be required in all public buildings.
Yeah, Provincetown has changed theirs. They're required in indoor settings now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So-
okay, so that's changed.
Yep.
Okay.
Can we
I
do
just-
this?
I think it's important to be consistent with their neighboring towns so people know if we can be.
Ron, may I make a motion to do two separate motions? Can we do two separate motions? The first could be, I move that we require masking and social distancing in all public buildings.
Again, that just covers the town buildings.
Yes, and then do the second one separately, okay? To have that be one motion and then to make a second motion.
Okay. So second,
Are we requiring masking for people in public buildings when the public buildings are closed?
Yeah,
Why would they be in a public building if they, oh, you mean like when
Public buildings
we
are
go?
not open to the public. So are we going back to that or, or
I
can
think we
allow
have
them
to, yeah.
Social distance. I'd like to hear from Steph on that point, I think.
Seth.
Like the public
Steph.
entering the building should have to wear masks. But I don't know about people having to wear masks all day in the building if everyone in there is socially distanced
And vaccinated.
yeah.
Charlie, sorry to put you on the spot.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
What's your opinion?
Well, yeah, as I say, unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to talk to Hillary today, but I think my instinct is not to open public buildings as we had discussed. Let's keep the current plan in place, and monitor what's going on in these towns. I think that's a layer of protection that has worked. We've been able to accommodate it seems to me, almost everybody's needs. So that would deal with that issue. I do think, we don't know. I mean, there are some town employees, I don't know the details, that may not be vaccinated. So if we want to, in fact, to be careful, I think we should require masks if we're not socially distanced.
Okay.
I mean, if I'm
Uh,
my I think that's quite fine.
Helen, I'm gonna let Jim Hood go, and then I would like to call the question.
Thanks, Ryan. I just want to, I assume that most people have listened to what the CDC's recommendations were today regarding this. And the reasons for that is that it is not only because of the unvaccinated, but the potential for people who are vaccinated to infect people with the virus if they've been exposed and harbor the COVID-19 vaccine virus, even though they don't have, they're asymptomatic at this point. That's the concern. And that's why the recommendation from CDC at this point is coming out that both vaccinated and unvaccinated people should be masked in any buildings where there is that level of control. That being said, I would say that in a public building, in a town building, if we say that it's required to adhere to those guidelines, that it would also mean that staff in those buildings need to comply with those guidelines. Thank you.
All right, so I move to call, or I call the question. So can we have a roll call vote?
Okay, clarify.
This is requiring masks within public buildings where social distancing cannot be maintained.
Just town buildings, right?
Yep.
Aye.
Second. Oops, John seconded.
No, it's already been moved and seconded.
Oh, okay. All right, Janet, I.
Donna,
Hold on.
aye.
Helen, I, but my motion was and social distancing, not where social distancing is not possible, because people are all the time moving around. Staff moves around in town hall and they pass each other in the hall and they go to the bathroom and they go into the, Xerox place, the copy machine place. And so, and social distancing is what I said in the motion. However, if you're alone in your office and the door is closed, you don't have to wear a mask, obviously.
Well, with your motion, they would have been required to in that situation.
So do we
If
need
it's
to
a
amend?
and.
Well, Ryan just made another motion. That motion I would vote for. I would not vote for the motion made by Helen.
Okay, Ryan, can we hear it again, please?
So it was to require masking in public buildings where social distancing cannot be maintained.
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Janet, I.
Aye.
Michael, aye.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay,
Can I make another motion?
go ahead.
I move that all visitors entering a public building must wear a mask.
Second,
Okay, roll call vote.
Janet, I.
Aye.
Michael, aye.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay.
Now, can we discuss recommending to
we-
businesses?
We've
that
already
they
discussed
require
it
masks?
sufficiently, Helen, at this point. I would like to entertain a motion.
That's what I was going to hope for. I move that we recommend to businesses that they require masks
Uh,
in their indoors.
I would second that motion.
She said recommend.
I know.
Well, I
think?
would love to mandate it, but I don't feel the political will is, happening with that.
I think it was pretty clear that that was the general consensus of the board, was to have masking in indoor businesses.
Required.
Here's my, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
My concern with that is just that without conditions on those, right? Like when they required masking in restaurants, there were conditions in which the masking, you obviously can't wear a mask
Yep.
while you eat.
well, you eat.
So, and so that's why I had brought up a recommendation from the Board of Health on that subject. So I'm more comfortable with making this request at this stage of the game, where I feel like we have a high vaccinated population and the opportunity to get vaccinated, should you want, that there has to be some room for people to make decisions as to whether they would like to go into a place that does not require a mask, but that we issue advisories and that we make this recommendation. And should we hear from the Board of Health going forward that they think that a mandate is in order with specific conditions on them, which are not required by the state of Massachusetts anymore, that then we could take that action. So I guess, that's where I stand at this point.
Okay, Chief Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know there's not a quasi motion on the table. I just want to caution that, as you know, we're having a very long summer at the moment. And, without this being a Massachusetts state of emergency or any type of state advisory or guidance on this, that, after hours, weekends, our phones are the ones that ring off the hook with the complaints, and what are we doing about it? So all I ask from my staff is just some guidance on where we're going with this, if it's any type of mandate, because then there's always concerns of an enforcement mechanism in how we handle it. So just for that consideration.
Okay. All right. So Mike, did you second Helen's motion?
I did, yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's just for recommending to businesses that they require masking. So can I have a roll call vote?
Janet, I.
Michael, aye.
John, I guess.
Ryan, I.
Ellen?
Helen, I.
Okay.
Okay,
And that is indoors, right? Was that?
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Recommend to businesses that people are required to mask and that they can, yeah,
That they,
whatever I said.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to also point out that I believe that the Chamber of Commerce has released some information to businesses as well as a flyer to put up. And maybe they could be reached out to as well and just let know that we've made this recommendation.
Lara's on in the meeting right now. So,
Hi, I'm sorry. I just missed that last sentence. Good evening, everybody.
hi Lara.
Hi.
What are you unclear on?
I just didn't hear the last 30 seconds where you called on the Chamber of Commerce. So I'm just wondering what that last point was.
Oh,
Yeah, can you repeat yourself, Mike?
yeah, I just said that I had seen that the Chamber of Commerce had issued a flyer for businesses to hang related to masks, and that we should reach out to the chamber and let them know that we've made a recommendation that all businesses require masks indoors.
Definitely.
That's all.
Okay. We will continue to reach out to the businesses, both our members and our non-members with all of this information.
Okay. Is there anything, sorry, one second. Is there anything else outstanding on this agenda item? All right, seeing none. We're on to board committee appointments. Appoint a representative to the Cape Cod Water Protection Board. That's Cape Cod Water Protection Fund Board. To make this, or to explain this, this requires a town official to serve on the board. Justina served on this, but yeah, it's required that it's a town official. So Helen, you requested this.
Well, somebody has to be appointed. I said originally, I said previously, the only thing I'd be willing to do this particular year is to be vice chair, and it's fine that Janet's doing it. But I've already got a lot on my plate. So Ryan, would you be willing to do it?
I would be. It looks like they only meet maybe once a month, so it's doable.
Yeah, and my impression of the two different groups, right, is that knowing what goes on in one sort of helps knowing what's going on in the other. So thank you for being willing to do it.
Okay, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I would. Hold on. This is the Cape Cod Water Protection Fund Management Group. We're doing
Yeah, the Cape Cod Water Protection.
Fund Management.
No, Fund Board.
Fund Board? No, if you look at the paper, it says right here, Management Board, okay?
Okay.
I took it off the document.
Yep.
I move to appoint Ryan Curley as the town's representative to the Cape Cod Water Protection Fund Management Board for a term ending June 30th, 2023.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Janet, I.
Michael, I.
John.
Voting, anybody?
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
John.
Voted. I voted aye.
Oh, okay. All right. Motion carries 5-0. The next one is Sorry, I'm flipping through pages as fast as I can here.
The next one is the Water Protection Board
Water Protection
Collaborative.
Collaborative.
Collaborative, sorry.
Yep. And so this is a 2-year term. Again, Justina served on this. She was appointed in July 23rd, 2019. And I've confirmed that the term has expired. And so it is vacant at this time. All right, Helen, this again, you brought this forward.
Well, necessity brought it forward. Ryan, would you be willing to do this too?
I would. It kind of makes sense to do both.
Yeah,
So
thank you. So do you want me to make a motion?
yes, please.
I move to appoint Ryan Curley to the Cape Cod Water Protection Collaborative with the term ending June 30th, 2023.
Second,
Roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Ellen, I.
Okay. And then so we're on to delegate a select board member to act as communication liaison in regards to the rail trail extension project. So this is something that Helen asked for.
Can I speak to that, Ryan?
This is-
As you know, I did the, shall we say, secretarial administrative work of getting the round table together. I simply wanted to ask the board not for a long-term liaison role, but simply to delegate me to contact the people that I spoke with and just let them know about our agenda item, upcoming agenda item, not saying this is a meeting for everybody, but just to give them a heads up that our Bike and Walkways Committee is going to do a presentation of their study. And also, that was the first thing I would be happy to do, given that I have all the numbers and made good contact with everybody verbally and in email, not overstepping what I should do. And also to say, where are you in this process, if that's something you want to report? And thirdly, although Jay Norton has also done this, to say, do you know where you are in terms of DOT, know where you are in terms of, having a hearing for this? No rush, just wondering. So, if you don't want to delegate me to do that, we can ask Charlie to do it, but I already did it, basically, a version of this, so. And then I'd report back to you. I'd write a little memo up with the answers to those questions. Does that feel reasonable, or?
I mean, you just basically described the communication liaison, but Michael, or Mike, sorry.
My hand up. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I would just move to appoint Helen, and I don't mind calling it a liaison because there has not been someone on the board that we have sort of delegated to make contact on these issues. But I would be hesitant to have a sort of like general, like that the liaison should contact, with on specific subjects that the board delegates her to do that. But I would just make a motion that the board delegate Helen Miranda Wilson as liaison in regard to the rail trail extension project.
Okay, is there a second? And then I'll get to
So
you.
I have my hand up. So
I'll
this
get
is,
to you right after. Is there a second on Michael's motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, and then Janet.
well, I think this is not really a position, but something that would be up to staff, like the TA, maybe the ATA, or as Helen said, I think it was Helen, maybe Jay Norton, that this is at the point where they need to be talking to a town official and as they progress and talking to them. So I don't really think we need a liaison.
Ryan, may I answer Janet, because I agree with her. Mike, I think it's good to have me do this little kind of hospitable reach out and not to have it be ongoing, because Jay's doing a whole different set of things. And ordinarily, this is just, I wouldn't state the town's position. I wouldn't do anything like that, or even my own point of view. I would just check in with them, write a memo, share it with the board, because generally, Janet, I think it's good when the whole board gets included with any real communication from these folks.
Okay.
Thank you.
I rescind my motion.
Okay, Jay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify, and thank you, Helen, for participating in this and acting as a liaison. But there's two different projects, as you guys know. So would this just be for the rail trail DCR extension, or also the MassDOT Route 6 intersection project?
My take, may I answer that, Ryan? What I would, Ryan?
No, I'll answer it. So the agenda item is specific to the rail trail extension project.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, that's interesting.
Okay, so Helen wants to serve as basically communications liaison, but doesn't want to be called a communications liaison.
No, Helen wants to do one set of things right now, get back to you, and then we take it from there.
Mr. Chair, may I make a motion?
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
I move that Helen communicate with the members that she communicated previously in regard to the rail trail extension project and the upcoming bike and walkways presentation.
Helen second.
Okay,
Janet, nay.
Michael, aye.
John, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay, motion, oh, sorry, Ryan.
Yeah, motion carries 4-1. So onto the Historical Society stairway. Michael, can you explain this?
Oh, yeah, okay. So this was actually first brought up before Ryan was even on the board, when Kathleen was still on the board. It was brought forward to us, discussion ensued. We determined that accepting a donation was the best way to go. There was some concerns about, liability. It was supposed to go to town council. There was a lot of non-action on this through administration during that time period. It's come back to us again. We had an MOU, not an MOU. We had a we had an MOU signed by their lawyer. And basically, I think we're at the point now where we can just, and I've spoken to Charlie about this, just accept this gift of a set of stairs to be built from the Historical Society down to the town hall parking lot. The requirements of the staircase are that it meet all of the safety and building codes in the state of Massachusetts in order to be built. So it would have to be permitted by the building department. And I think we're at a stage where we can just accept the donation of the stairs, very generous donation, and it will provide access in an area that's kind of a goat path right now where people do cut through.
Okay, Jen, I see your hand up, but I would
Yep.
like to give Eric Winslow an opportunity to speak first, if that's okay with you.
So I just have a technicality, and this came up before our board, even like 4 or so years ago. I'd like to hear from Jay Norton, because one of the reasons we didn't want this responsibility is who's liable for the upkeep, the maintenance. And I'd love to hear if Jane Norton has the people to do it.
So Jay, for the purpose of answering that question,
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. Janet, actually, Mark and I met on site a few years ago about this. And I think one of the stipulations from the DPW was that we didn't have any issues with the project or the location of the project, but we did put a stipulation on the I think it was an agenda request that the DPW wasn't responsible for any maintenance for that.
Yeah,
okay.
I agree. That's how I remember it too.
So I would like to give Eric Winslow an opportunity to speak to this, if he's so willing. Eric?
Sure, can you hear me?
Yep.
That's true. We did meet with along with Mark Vincent back about 1.5 years ago, and we talked about the maintenance and not plowing snow into the front of it and whatnot, so it could be left open. And there was a concern about not adding another maintenance project for the town. And we had volunteered to take care of it, and there actually shouldn't be much maintenance other than occasionally shoveling snow if we ever have snow again. And so we were agreeable to that, but then to actually figure out how to go about putting that into a memorandum that was acceptable to everyone, then it started getting into insurance issues and liability issues. And there was a request made that our insurance company have liability insurance for the stairway, as the town would under its blanket liability. That became an issue because we wouldn't own the stairway. So we've been batting this around. It's just getting complicated. We're willing to maintain it, but I guess we're hesitant to try to put this into some legally binding agreement to maintain it. So it just seemed like it would be simpler to just basically give it to the town. The town would keep it under its insurance, it would be covered with its insurance policy and would be responsible for maintaining it, but we would shovel the snow and take care of that type of issue. And it's not a perfect world, and I know, and I understand this does represent more responsibility for the town, but I'm hoping that the project would, since it would be benefiting not only the museum, but the town, I think, that we could move forward with it.
Thank you.
And before I go to somebody else, so Jay, does the town still, is the town still the responsible party for the stairs at Masonic Lane?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, because that's actually a town road, the stairs that go up it. So Charlie?
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I was thinking when I sort of went back and I checked the minutes of prior select board meetings, and I did check with town council, and they had not been engaged to review the legal issues, but which I thought was good. And in the end, you think about the assets that the town of Wellfleet has, and frankly, a really extensive insurance coverage on liability issues as well as property related issues. I just think it's a minor burden for us to absorb because it does have value to both organizations. So I think it's personally fine. And the reality is they're going to have to build a permit, get a building permit. It's going to have to be inspected, and it's going to be built in a manner that is not going to have any significant maintenance for a long time. So I think the risk is pretty low, and I'd recommend that we accept the gift, and then we could just work with the historic commission over time if there are small maintenance issues and we need some help.
Okay, Helen, is your hand up?
Yep.
Do you have
So,
something?
yes. And Ryan, yes. Really? Do you have anything?
Hey, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Come on.
So, Janet, you and I also may remember, and if Charlie just looked at the minutes, who knows if it's in there, but one of the options was to give them an easement.
Right.
And I have to say, that would mean that if anything happened, it would be, you know, more insurable for them if they had an easement and they own the stairs. And I also want to say thank you, Mr. Winslow. Thank you, Historical Society, for being willing to make this easier, because I would have liked to use those stairs twice this week. But what about the idea of an easement? What was the problem with that? You know, no maintenance. on our
Charlie,
part.
can you answer that question, please?
Well, the answer is, of course, we didn't check the legal issues relative to that approach, but it seems to me if we're going to grant an easement, it's an interest in real estate, albeit really small. And instinctually, I would say we would have to go to town meeting to get permission to grant an interest in real estate to another organization. And I just think it's a lot to do about something that appears relatively minor and so good.
Okay, Jay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment on Charlie's response, and I agree with him. I think this is very minimal maintenance, and if it comes down to it, it's something we certainly could handle. I was just simply relaying what happened a year and a half ago with Mark Vincent as the reign of the department. I frankly didn't pick up on this until I read the agenda earlier today. So I apologize for not being prepared for this agenda item, but if it comes down to it, the DPW can certainly maintain this.
Okay, so I would say it does improve the town. It's an improvement. It's a pathway that's currently in use without stairs. There's routes across it. It's definitely sometimes treacherous. The town has accepted improvements elsewhere in the town as gifts. The memorial garden next to Preservation Hall is an example of one. So I would really like to move on accepting these gratefully as a gift from the Historical Society.
Second.
May I make a motion?
Go ahead, Mike.
I move to accept the donation of a set of stairs from the Historical Society as described in the packet, conditioned on an approved building permit.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Janet, I.
Mike?
Michael, I. Sorry, I forget the order now.
Yep. Ryan, I. Helen?
Don,
He voted aye.
Helen, I didn't hear him vote. Okay.
Yeah,
Can
his
we have
mic's
it?
kind of low, so.
Yeah, okay.
Let me see what I can do
Mr.
about
Chair?
that.
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, never mind. Forget it's on next on the agenda. Go ahead.
Yep. Okay, so motion carries 5-0.
Year and a half.
So this is onto discussion on the request for Wellfleet Drive-In. It's actually and a possible vote to authorize town council to represent both Wellfleet and Eastham in the matter. So Greg Corbo, could you go ahead?
Yes, thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So as you may or may not be aware, the Wellfleet Drive-In is looking to use a portion of its property, I believe for solar panels, and as part of a project that they're doing there, they're looking to connect to a public water supply. And since Wellfleet currently does not have a public water supply to that area, but Eastham's is close there too. they have a proposal to extend Eastham's water supply over the line for the purpose of serving the Wellfleet drive-in. So I have been in preliminary discussions with the town of Eastham, who we also serve as town council to, regarding this project, and their request that I work with them to draw up an agreement between Eastham and the drive-in concerning the extension of the water lines and the business terms that are associated with that. However, because the line is being extended into the town of Wellfleet, the town of Wellfleet also has an interest in the matter. The town of Wellfleet may also become a party to that agreement. And so because I have two clients that are both interested in the same subject matter, I need to obtain the consent of both to be able to represent either. It's my position at this point, at least based on what I'm aware of, that the positions of Eastham and Wellfleet are not adverse with respect to this matter. It's really assuming that both parties are in agreement that this water line should be extended, then it's really just a matter of coming up with a legal agreement to make that happen. However, if you as the select board in Wellfleet are not in favor of this project, or you are not in favor of KP Law representing both you and the town of Eastham, then I'm providing you with an opportunity to provide that objection. And if you do object, then I would not represent, or the firm would not represent, either party to this transaction. If you consent, I've provided a form for you to sign, and I would ask that you do sign that, and then I would be able to represent both parties as originally planned. So that's it in a nutshell. I don't have a ton of details at this point about the project itself, because I didn't want to delve too deeply into the terms of an agreement if both sides were not going to consent to our involvement. But I will, through you, Mr. Chair, open it up to any questions that board members might have, and I will try to answer those to the best of my ability.
Okay, so basically you're asking for a determination that you do not have a co-current conflict of interest in this instance. And it's not necessarily about an approval at this time for allowing a water main. Is that correct?
That's correct. Although I think that if the sense of the board was that you are opposed to this agreement, then I would not be comfortable representing Eastham in trying to make a project happen that you are opposed to. And so while I'm not necessarily asking you for a decision, I kind of need to get the sense of the board on this, because if you're not in favor, it does affect whether or not there's a conflict.
Okay, and then I'm going to call on Jim Hood, because the Board of Water Commissioners also has an interest in this. So Jim, if you could go ahead.
Thanks, Ryan. We did discuss this at an earlier meeting, and the Board of Water Commissioners has no issue with regard to Eastham providing water to that site. We just want to ensure that there is an agreement in place to ensure that if the circumstances were to change in the future and that Wellfleet were able to provide its own water to that site, that we were able to do that. The other concern would be that it also would be in compliance with whatever the building, with whatever the requirements for building department laws are with regard to the buildings that are there on site and their access to water. That's all.
Okay, Helen?
Yeah, a couple questions through you to Greg. So the water main would be coming into Wellfleet on state property along Route 6, typically. And it would then go directly onto private property. That is to say, the corporation that owns the theater complex there. Why is it that the town is involved at all? Is it because of that statute? And I can't cite it properly, forgive me, maybe you can. That says if two municipalities share a source of water, as do Provincetown and Truro, which is when I learned about it, they both can and should participate in decision-making about the use of that water source. Why is it that you are coming before us, in other words, at all? I'm not saying you don't have a good reason for it. I just don't understand it, given that this is not going to go on town property at all.
Right.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. You're correct. It's not going over town property. It will go, under or along Route 6 directly to the private property of the drive-in. So we're not necessarily asking the town of Wellfleet to provide approvals for use of Wellfleet property or for digging in Wellfleet roads. However, because this is a water supply that is being extended into the town of Wellfleet for purposes of allowing a development that might not otherwise be able to go forward, and because the water department has expressed an interest in the terms of how that water would be delivered, particularly the fact that they would like to have this condition that if Wellfleet water becomes available, that this line would be abandoned and they would connect to Wellfleet water. It's my opinion that Wellfleet does have an interest in this and is going to need to be a party to any agreement that is reached because of that specific condition. So, this is not necessarily the typical case where we would do an intermunicipal agreement because there's work on town property or in town roads, but I believe that Wellfleet has enough of an interest here that it would likely want to have a say in how this agreement is ultimately drafted.
Okay, Mike.
Didn't mean to have my hand up.
Okay, John.
Yeah, just a question. Where were they getting their water before, and what is the reason they have for wanting to change their source? And through you to Mike, or through you to Greg, rather, or do you know that? Or
I actually don't know. Through you, Mr. Chair, does the representative of the water board know the answer to that?
Jim.
Right. From what I understand, there were some issues with the water source there at the drive-in and at the cinema, and they're looking to correct that with the installation of the water from Eastham.
Okay. Anything else, John? Sorry.
No, that just, I was curious as to why they wanted to do that, and that makes sense. So, okay.
In that form, Greg, does the entire board have to sign it or just one?
That's up to you. I believe I created the form so that there's space for everyone to sign. But if you'd like, you can just have a vote authorizing the chair to sign on the board's behalf.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion. I move that the select board has determined that KP Law does not have a co-current conflict of interest in representing the towns of Eastham and Wellfleet in relations to water line extension from the town of Eastham to the Wellfleet Drive-In.
Second,
And to authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the board.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Janet, I.
And I,
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, nay, and I need to state why briefly, Ryan. Because at this
If you're
stage,
short, yes.
I see no reason for Wellfleet to be involved in this decision at all, given what Mr. Corbo said. Perhaps in the future we might be. Why Wellfleet would want to run miles of pipe all the way to South Wellfleet border, I don't know. But that's the reason I'm not voting for this. Although Mr. Corbo, Attorney Corbo, I absolutely respect and, would approve otherwise. We had a situation like this with Herring River.
Okay, so Helen, we're gonna move on.
Yep.
So we just have a lot to get to. Chief Hurley has an update on the Pan Mass Challenge. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you don't need me anymore, I'm going to sign off now.
All right, thank you, Greg.
Okay, have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In your packet this evening, I just had administration put in the letter from Pan Mass Challenge. A slight alteration to the route this year due to the construction work at the end of the rail trail at LeCount Hollow Road. So it's my understanding that they will be en route down the bike trail from Eastham as in the past, but we will be bringing them out to the highway at Marconi Road, where the set of lights are, down Route 6 and then up onto LeCount's, onto the normal route through the rest of town. And that is incurring some additional costs for them this year with detail officers, which they have ordered 5 of them, and they will be paying costs for that.
Okay, are there any questions from the board?
Nope.
no,
Okay, and then are you looking for any motion from us, Chief?
I don't think so, Mr. Chair. Just in the past, I know that unlike other events where it's just Wellfleet oriented, this is more of an FYI. And if the board feels just as an official matter, because they are coming through town, but if not, I'm good.
Okay, and just so it's clear, it's this route change is because otherwise they would be coming out into the South Wellfleet parking lot at the post office and old general store. So,
Yeah, correct. They would be coming through that wooded area, and that would be about 1,500 bikers, which would add to our current disaster down there already.
okay. All right. Well, thank you tonight, Chief.
Thanks.
So we're on to discussion of land exchange with the town of Wellfleet and the Cape Cod National Seashore. So before we get into this, 1 second. Yeah. So in regards to the land exchange proposed for the Herring River project, the motion in the packet should be disregarded. I spoke to Carol Ridley and Carol Ridley, and this is Brian's presentation to the board. The intent of the presentation is to inform for discussion the encroachment on the National Seashore parcels, the process used by the park, and the parcels that the National Park Service might be interested in, and not to enter into an agreement at this time. No motion to that effect should be advanced by the board. Also, due to the nature as real property, I'm also going to ask to limit the select board to limit discussions onto why an exchange is needed, the overall footprint of the encroachment on the National Seashore parcels, how it was arrived at and their process, and not comment on specific town-owned parcels that have been highlighted at this time as it is in fact a negotiation between the town and the seashore. There are also So on that note, I would like to turn this over to Brian.
Happy to talk with all of you this evening about the proposed land exchange. Before we get into it, I did notice Select Board Member John had his hand up. Brian?
Okay, John.
Well, I think I should probably wait until he's made his presentation.
Okay. And Rebecca, if you may, we do have 7 slides I think might help to really clarify the substantial amount of information that is in the packet. If you have an opportunity to pull that up. If not, I'll walk through it and we can jump around.
Yep, give me 1 second.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. A couple of things I want to make clear is while we're waiting for that to be pulling up. Now, the Herring River Restoration Project's a critical step to restoring a significant piece of the ecological integrity of the seashore within Wellfleet. And it has tremendous benefit to both the seashore, to the town, to the state, to Cape Cod Bay, for improved shellfish habitat, improved recreation habitat, protection of property in the upper reaches of the Herring River Basin. And this is a critical piece to enabling the rest of that to occur. And we're really exploring an equitable exchange to continue the Herring River Restoration Project and correcting over a century of ecological damage to that wetland, to the town, to the seashore. And this is the latest step in a decades-long effort to try and rectify a long-standing issue that is causing so much ecological harm, both to the shell fishery, to the herring fishery, and the ecological function and services provided by the wetland. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into this and I'll walk us through it relatively quickly because this is a significant amount of information. And through this, I'm going to give you an idea of how many steps we're going to be going through on the land exchange, and they are significant. The overall area that we're talking about and how we've come to is documented very intensely through the entire project. It's 2 miles of non-contiguous low-lying town road segments that are going to include fill and elevation beyond the footprint. I'll show you some maps on those in a little bit. Construction of the Chequesset Neck Road Bridge and adjacent parking and river access. And we don't have the authority to grant an easement or a permit. That's not something that we do. For this kind of an effort, we've got to do a land exchange for it to support these restoration and project elements. It's 9.39 acres cumulatively across a number of different parcels that impact the park service outside of the town road layouts. So it's basically, think of it as along the roads, you've got all these little bits and pieces and slivers along those alignments where those need to be rectified and exchanged in totality in order to move the entire project forward. We briefed you on this about 11 months ago regarding land exchange needs and issues, and this is a continuum of information sharing to help inform how we're going to negotiate through this and figure out what can work. So we've got 3 parcels to kind of guide us consideration for this as we continue to move through the effort. Next slide, please, Rebecca. And you'll all get this compiled thing. And thank you to Park Planner Lauren McKeon, who many of you know, for compiling these for discussions. So the near-term decisions before the board to consider are not looking for any motion tonight, as Ryan said, is to confirm the extent of encroachment and the land to be exchanged, the north and south low-lying roads, the Bound Brook Island Road, which is a western portion of it, and a private driveway access, High Toss Road, and in the lands adjacent to the Chequesset Neck Dike area, primarily on the western side near Duck Harbor Road, for long-term town management for parking and river access adjacent to the dike, which is planned to become a bridge with tide gates integrated into it. And discuss and engage in potential equal value exchange so that we can initiate assistance, because the seashore can't do this on our own, of the lands office that we're working with very intensely. Again, it's 4 different areas. Agree on the tracks to exchange. That's the second part of this, and discuss preliminary ideas to National Seashore on which tracks those might be, and free to provide feedback on that. And then we'd have to enter into a land exchange agreement, identify the town actions, which are many. You got to meet with the select board. It's got to go before town meeting, and there are many other steps involved in this that are very prescribed in order to reach a conclusion of affecting the land exchange. Next slide, please. Thank you, Rebecca. And this is a snippet of one of the pages in your packet. This just gives you an idea comprehensively how early we are in the process, and there's over 20 steps to this. Many of them are exclusive to the lands office working the process through, because it's a very involved effort on our part. And we were asked to provide this just so you can get an idea of how involved this is and how thorough it is, and how we're looking at this purely from an equitable standpoint. This is something that the park wants to see move forward in conjunction with the town, so that we can end up with the end result of restored Herring River wetland and correct an impaired water quality issue that's been long standing. Next slide, please. So these are the areas that we've been asked to consider and look at for what we might have as exchange. You know, the landing strip portion, which is just south of park headquarters near Marconi Beach. It's a 48-acre tract. We're looking for roughly 1/5 of that. That's to give you an idea where it's at. The overall exchange is about 9.4 acres, 9.39, and that equates to roughly 1/5 or 20% of that landing strip area. Next slide, please. And then the gut, that's the parcel where the old town access used to be on the bay side, just north of Great Island. That's about a 6-acre parcel. And this all has to go through evaluation and determination before exchange can be perfected. Next slide, please. And this is another one. This one's a little tougher to explain, but I think the description does really well. It's basically where the old firing range used to be out south of Great Pond. And it's a parcel of land that we really don't have definitively defined yet. It's just kind of outlined as an area that we're interested in because it's a wetland. It's an ephemeral wetland that helps to support a lot of sensitive species. So this one would require some more work before we come up with a definitive amount of acreage that can be exchanged here. Next slide, please. So this is, kind of up to some ideas for what we can walk through and discuss. And I'm open for any questions at this time or to discuss it further. And I have both Carol Ridley on this evening, as well as Lauren, to help with any technical questions that may arise, if I may defer to them at some point, Ryan.
Definitely.
Thank you.
So, John?
Yeah, well, I think one of my questions was answered because I was concerned about the idea of the town transferring or exchanging land without going through town meeting. But I see that.
Yeah, that's
clearly been put on the map. My question is, what is to be done with this land? For instance, that portion of the landing strip. And what would we be getting in exchange for that?
Well, the exchange is the parcels along right-of-ways to perfect the Herring River restoration. Basically, the town's going to be building the bridge. This is the easiest example, but and within your packet, there's a depiction of the area on the west side of the bridge alignment, where for that to be built, there's going to be an encroachment onto seashore land, where the town of Wellfleet is going to be building that new bridge that will be in part the town's structure.
So what's now the dike?
Yeah, it's now the dike, and that would become the bridge, right?
But what
And then-
what does the Marconi plot have to do with that?
What is the what?
What does the Marconi landing strip
That-
have to do with?
Well, that's what we're offering up for exchange, because essentially the town is going to be taking some portions of parcels from the seashore. So it's an equitable exchange back so that the seashore is made whole from turning over parcels of those land for the restoration effort to the town. Does that help, John?
Yeah, no, but I would then want to find a way to determine, for instance, what could we do with that land? Is that something we could use for affordable housing? Is it buildable for that purpose or other town purposes of that sort?
There's a lot of hands shooting up, but John, in short, that land is identified for purposes that are going to be utilized by the restoration project.
Lauren, can you, you're muted. You're muted, Lauren.
There it is, unmuted. In your select board packet, that for anyone else in the audience, we do have about 8 other slides that Brian didn't show of all those parcels along those north-south roads, High Toss Road, Boundbrook Island Road, that are going to be impacted, and that's the part of the exchange that is needed by the town of Wellfleet to help us both mutually do this project. So definitely look at your packet to see what would be exchanged in exchange for these parcels.
You know, I'm looking at it. Those packets along, for instance, or those parts along Boundbrook Island Road, just to be clear, are those, is that what we would be giving to you? Or is that what?
That's actually
other way around.
It's the other way around. In those areas, we have to do, the engineers have provided a 3-to-1 slope of the roads. So the roadways have to be expanded into the town, into the National Seashore land beyond the town layout. And so what we've tried to do in that packet is articulate all the places where the town land activities spill over and encroach onto Park Service land where we need to exchange. And that's the total of the 9 acres.
Okay, Helen?
Yes, so 2 things. I was asked to be on the discussion, in a discussion with the park about this whole process last year. I haven't met with them since last year. And I'm looking forward to this whole process happening in public because it's non-adversarial, as has been said a number of times. This is something we're all into. And the stage we're at, just to put it in a more, for me, user-friendly way, is this is the point at which both the town and the park give each other our wish lists. And wish list is a kind of superficial way to describe the onerous process by which the park has to identify what might be possible to swap. But the reason we're doing it is because we're very much wanting the project to happen equally together, both the town and the park. So it's not like anybody's paying for anything. And the park can't just let us raise these roads and have the berms that kind of go on the side of them without us owning it. Or, you know, in other words, that has to be secured before this can go forward. Thank you.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, I was just going to ask about the equal value. Does the park consider that? I know that on the park side, there has to be equal value for lands exchanged. Is that monetary value or value measured in some other way? How does that work? Is it like the value of the property? What's the process for determining, you know, Is it acre by acre? Is road frontage matter?
Excellent question, Michael. And Laura, excuse me. Lauren, can you provide a little background on that?
Yeah,
Okay.
there will be fair market value appraisal involved. I think we all need to do some estimating ourselves about the values of these properties. We'll be definitely interested in what the town assessor's office has to offer. And so it will be something that, we'll need to go through in further stages of the analysis. But, the idea is the most equitable and practical equivalent land exchange possible.
Okay, and I just had one more question.
One second, Mike.
Yep.
Rebecca, can you check in with Janet?
I'm here.
Oh, you're here? Sorry,
Yep.
there's just two. All right. Go
I
ahead.
know there's two of us, new computer, sorry. And if I mess around with it, then something happens and I totally disappear, so.
All right. I was just making sure you were here, so.
No, I thank you.
All right, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm also on the Affordable Housing Trust, and I'm just wondering, in this process, if the town is interested in pursuing other land swaps, is this would it be a better process to make these requests for other land swaps during this time period while we're doing these, or would that further complicate things on behalf of the park? I know there's been some conversation with the trust and the seashore on that issue. And I'm just kind of curious if this is something that, if the town wishes to put forward along with these parcel swaps, if this is an opportune time to do that as far as the park's concerned.
I would want to try and keep those as two separate initiatives, to try and keep this as clean as possible, the Herring River effort, because it's got so much additional permitting work that's already been accomplished behind it. Michael, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I just
Okay.
maybe
Excellent question.
pile in there.
Yeah.
Same time.
And
it looks like Lauren has her hand
Yeah,
back.
and can I just add, I did speak with Terry Turkanian, and I've spoken with him when he was town administrator about the Marconi Landing Strip and the senior center and other locations. One thing about doing affordable housing within the Seashore District is it needs to be a municipal purpose. It needs to be a municipal use because of the zoning surrounding the Seashore District. So he was very cognizant of that. We had a discussion last week. One thing that I will offer up for on the Marconi Landing Strip is that no, it's very, it gets a little muddy. There is an outstanding title issue, and that is our lands chief, she's I think deputy of the lands office, did say that although we don't believe that the parcel has access, she doesn't think it's going to materially or significantly, I should say significantly, reduce the value of the property that it does not have road access, because it's a significant parcel of open space.
Okay, Mike, anything else?
That's all I had for now.
Okay, so Laura Runkle. Could
Yes.
you?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I had been seeing that some of the constituents in the upper Poldyke Creek area and abutters to the restoration in general, curious about the land exchanges and the equitability of what the town is offering to the seashore. So it sounds like you're making those evaluations on a dollar by dollar basis.
Because they're talking about something on the hearing group. And Laura Runkle.
Can somebody mute her?
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Sorry. Go ahead, Laura.
Did you hear my, yeah, so that was a remark, and I was looking for some sort of response on that. I think because people are interested in being reassured that the town's interests are being considered as a primary thing. And the other thing I guess I was wondering is whether or not some of the money that might go towards land swaps is also a part of the pledge that's being made by the town to a state grant. I believe we've been asked to pledge something like 10% towards a $2 million grant from the state. So I'm just curious, is this part of it?
Okay, Carol? You're muted.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Carol Ridley, Project Coordinator. Just quickly to Laura's question, this land exchange is completely separate from consideration of the match for the grant. The parcels that were discussed loosely for that purpose were parcels that were under town ownership.
If they're talking about land.
Under the select board control and transferred to Conservation Commission control. And those were the parcels, and no named parcels were specified, but that category of parcels was what was, just very loosely discussed as potential. If the grant, the pledged grant match doesn't materialize, that would be another alternative form of match. But it was totally separate and not at all involving these parcels. I just want to make that clear.
Okay. Nancy?
Hi, thank you. This is Nancy, the Shellfish Constable. Rebecca, could you go back to the previous slide quick for a minute? Maybe the one before, sorry. Okay, well, my question, yeah, can you keep going? It was like maybe it was the very first slide. No, keep going, sorry. Sorry, that's it. So point number 3 here, NPS does not have authority to grant an easement or permit for this and must engage in a land exchange to support these restoration project elements. My question is, does NPS have the authority to grant easements or permits, let's say, for access in perpetuity over parcels that may be taken into consideration or be used as part of this land exchange? So for example, I guess I wonder if this is an overarching thing that the federal government does not grant easements or permits, for example, for rights of access in perpetuity, or if it's just on those little parcels, you can't do that.
Okay, Brian or Lauren?
Brian, I don't believe we have the ability to grant easements for construction work in perpetuity. We have the ability to have easements for conservation and scenic purposes, but I do not know of any easements in perpetuity for construction purposes. We could certainly investigate that.
Okay, Ryan,
we have asked many questions based on some of the questions from the Herring River technical team. I feel like we might have answered this already, but why not ask again?
Nancy?
Yes, so through you, thank you, Ryan, to Lauren. It's not for construction. I'm thinking about, there's 2 parcels that have been proposed that perhaps would get used for fishing or shellfishing or freshwater fishing. And should the town and the park agree that one of those parcels would be used in this land exchange, would there be an ability of the Park Service to grant an easement to the town or a permit for rights of access for these types of activities, let's say shellfishing or freshwater fishing? Is that something that could be included in the land exchange? Or is that something based on this bullet that you don't have the authority to do? And so that would be off the table.
Nancy, I think that question merits further investigation for that
Okay.
specific kind of an access easement. I'd be remiss to try and provide a definitive answer on that this evening.
That's fine. It's great topic for discussion. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks.
And if you have a specific location, that would be helpful to have. I'm not aware of any place that access has been precluded.
Okay, John?
Yeah, this gets back to something through you to Lauren, having to do with that landing strip. You mentioned that there's no access to it. So what value would that have to the town? Because I think this is, as someone previously mentioned, we really do have to look out for the town's interests here, as well as that of the seashore and the project. To be clear, I'm not opposed to the project. I'm just saying that we need to be clear on the town's interests, that we maintain those. And if we're talking about a strip of land that we can't use,
John, I'm going to limit I would prefer for the select board not to discuss specific parcels to be exchanged.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mike.
can I just speak to John's concern? The landing strip actually belongs to the town right now, and we have no access to it. I think maybe that's the confusion. We would be exchanging land that we have, which is the landing strip, in order to gain access to have the bridge and the other road parcels. So we're not requesting any land. We own the landing strip right now and currently have, at least the way it looks on paper, no access. There's some title dispute as to whether there's access to that land or not. Well, not access, but frontage. We know there's no access to the land because.
I think, yeah,
So that
but
land-
that point was made to me earlier and I got it mixed up.
Right, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that for you.
Okay. So I have a couple of questions, but Helen, I see your hand up again, but I have a couple questions first. The first is there's a driveway on Bound Brook, and I'm wondering why the town is the responsible party for a private driveway. So included in the 9 acres of encroachment is an acre, just a little bit over an acre for a private driveway on Bound Brook that has to be relocated to accommodate the project. So Carol, you're muted.
Thank you. So I just wanted to, just in sort of in preface to that, to a response to that question, I just wanted to stress that every effort has been made in the project design process to minimize these areas of encroachment along the roadways and with the other project elements, the bridge and so forth. The exercise the project team went through with Lauren and the Seashore team is to, just identify all of the areas in question that are areas of encroachment that are minimally, the minimal needed to enable the project elements to proceed. And so that one particular project element was identified as part of that mix, but flagged as a different sort of category of situation. But the idea was to put it into the discussion with the select board so that that could just be one of the considerations that you need to consider. But I think that I just wanted to stress that every effort was made to keep these areas as small as possible, and this is just one among others that needs to be sorted through.
Okay, because we have Bound Brook Island, western portion, track 25 8732, and to private driveway access to the south. There's 5 parcels of encroachment. That's 1.17 acres. How much of that is on private versus public? Do we know? Okay.
May we see a map, please?
Is that page 83 of the packet, Ryan?
I don't have page numbers, unfortunately. It's page 3 of your memo of the, so that's page 3 of the Herring River Land Exchange Resolution of Low-Lying Road and other improvements in the town of Wellfleet. And it's,
Okay.
do you see it?
Is it near Hopkins Drive, Ryan?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, it's a 0.9 acre
0.9
parcel,
yeah.
as I understand, so.
Yeah, there's the 0.96,
got
but
it.
there's also, this is 2 Boundbrook Island Road portion, and 2 private driveway access to the south, town of Wellfleet. And that acreage is 1.17 acres. And then there's the private land impact with an acreage of 0.96 acres. And that's included in the combined total acreage. And I'm wondering how much of the private driveway access to the south, which is the 1.17 acres, is private versus the public road of Boundbrook Island Road. And then I'm also wondering about the town being the responsible party for the private land impact as well.
So I think it's the 0.9 acre that we're talking about, and because the town Brook Island Road is being raised, it's going to then result in the need to raise the driveway as well, also because of the raising of the seawater level, and the bundling of that versus we don't believe that we need to do a land exchange with the private entity because of the easement that they have. So we're still kind of, that one's a little bit, we have that at the solicitor's office still for final explanation of, you know, exactly what we should do there. So we'll be clarifying that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still working through these, Ryan, and I applaud your attention to detail. That's a tricky one.
Yeah, that's the one, that's kind of the remaining tricky part. As we, you know, we worked since the last August when we last met with you to try to figure out all of those missing details. And we got pretty close to being there, but we have a couple things still to figure out.
Okay. Mike? Or actually, Helen, you had your hand up a while ago. Did you still want to go or can I
Yeah,
go?
sorry, I just want to add one thing, which is, in my opinion, private property shouldn't count toward the town's debt. Debt is in quotes here. The town's stuff to barter. Right, thank you.
Okay. Mike?
Just on that note, I kind of got distracted by Helen's comment there. But I guess what I was thinking is, you know, this is part of a project that's a joint project, and had it been town property that we could exchange for what's essentially going to be unusable property, would we do that? Seems like the issue is this is the best solution for use of land in order to grant access to that property with the minimal disturbance. In that regard, I mean, this isn't just a National Seashore project, it's a town project. And, you know, we have some skin in the game, you know, and if the easiest and most logistically feasible way to do it is for the park to exchange with the municipality, then I don't have a problem with that personally, or as a board member representing the town, because I think that we have a large amount of benefits that are a result of this project. And the other question I had was just for the chair, and I'm wondering for what purpose that we are not supposed to discuss particular parcels. Is there a reason?
Yes, because it's a discussion of real property and the disposition of it. It's effectively a negotiation with the park. And I would like to have an executive session before we discuss specific parcels, and then we can definitely discuss them in public. There's a couple things that we need to go over about some. So, and that can only be done in executive session.
Okay, that's fine. I just was curious if it was about an executive session or a later date, or.
Yep, it's about an executive
that's
session.
your determination to make. So.
Yep. Okay, who had their hand up next?
John.
John?
This is a question, because I'm not really sure what I'm looking at here when I'm looking at these maps that were included in the packet. The red outline, just for example, the red outlined areas along Pole Dyke Road, is that land that Wellfleet would acquire?
Effectively, yes.
Okay, because from what I'm seeing, I guess it's hard to visualize how much area that is. Is any of that buildable, or what could we do with it?
It's not buildable. Brian?
Yeah, John, it's basically to allow for the road bed to be elevated. And those are the slopes in order to allow for the elevation to keep the road viable as a result of the project.
I see. So that the abutters would be able to continue to use the roads.
Yeah, so that would continue to be a viable roadway. Exactly.
Okay. Anything else, John?
No.
Okay, Helen?
Yeah, reminder to everybody, through you to you, Ryan. We are never required to go into executive session, but we can if we think we need to. I would hope that, given this is not an adversarial situation, given that everybody benefits from it in the end, that we have full discussion when we get to parcels in public so that everybody can hear what we're thinking about them.
Helen, respectfully.
Excuse me, I'm not done. And I do appreciate that you don't want to discuss the parcels now. I got that. But that we should do this all in public. This is not a.
Helen, there's certain things that we cannot discuss outside of executive sessions in regards to some of these parcels. So respectfully, Helen, I would like to have an executive session first so that we can develop a coherent response. And so that we can discuss some of the issues that we can only discuss in executive sessions regarding some of these parcels. So, so back to the exchange with a private, for the private driveway. Wouldn't it be possible for the Seashore to do a exchange with the private party to accommodate the relocation of the driveway?
I want to defer to Lauren on that. She's been in direct consultation with our solicitor's office on aspects of that very question, Ryan.
We're not sure that that is needed because they have an easement, a stated easement in deeded easement. So it may come down to the construction on the NPS land that's required to provide that private driveway because it's an easement. That's how that one got complicated.
Okay, so there's a possibility that there might not even need to be an exchange at all to accommodate that driveway.
Might not need to be one with the private party, but we're still not sure whether there needs to be one with the public party. So we're
still exploring the resolution of that legal
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've even heard from the solicitor's office today, and we're banding things about with the lands office and the solicitor's office at this time on that.
Okay. Martha Craig.
Hi, thank you. Just briefly, I would just like to add one comment to commend the Seashore for attending this board meeting and for the select board for listening. And just in respect to the public for hearing what's going on with the land exchange in a public forum. I think there have been some questions about that. And I just want to note that this sounds like the beginning of a public negotiation, and just so that the public is aware that this is a public process, and it has also come before the executive council previously, so it's not completely unexpected. But I would just like to thank the select board and the Seashore for their comments and bringing this into a public forum for comment. Thank you.
Yeah, and my plan, just so you know, is to bring it back into the public as soon as we have a chance to discuss a couple of the issues regarding some of these parcels. So, and just checking before we move on, is there anybody else that has a comment? All right, well, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Lauren.
You're very welcome. It's always a pleasure to present before the select board. You require any further information or clarification, just let us know. Happy to provide it. It's been a highly collaborative process, and we look forward to continue working with you on this.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, thanks for having us.
All right, well, thank you. And then, so we're on to renewing the contract for interim town administrator, Charles Sumner. So Charlie's contract expires on August 7th. Our next meeting is on August 10th. So if the board chooses to continue Charlie's contract, we need to decide that tonight at this meeting.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, the hands went 1 second. Yep, okay. All right, so Mike.
I have a motion, and I'd also just like to say that I know that we can only do a 90-day contract, and hopefully Charlie will see us through to the next town administrator and the hiring process. But for now, I move to approve the contract extension for Charles Sumner as printed for 90 days.
1 second.
John?
I was going to second it, that's all.
Oh, okay. All right, any discussion, or is this pretty clear to everybody? We all think that he's doing a great job, right?
Yes, yes.
Thank you, thank you.
A lifesaver.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so can we have a roll call vote?
Janet, I.
Aye.
Michael, aye.
Ryan, aye.
Helen, I.
And then Charlie?
Oh, did you recognize me, Ryan?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you all for your vote and your nice comments. I really do appreciate it. And I think you all know I've enjoyed serving the town of Wellfleet, and I do want to just thank all the staff and department heads have been a huge help, and members of the board. And relative to a question that maybe Mike mentioned, Mike knows, I was a little concerned about the way the retirement law worked for someone like me and how many hours I could work, but I have reviewed that matter and, as long as you want me, I think, I can be around till you go through a process and select a permanent town administrator, and maybe in the next couple of meetings, we could start talking about the timeline and the process that you'd like to use. But anyway, thanks all very much. I appreciate it.
I don't think you should say as long as you want me, Charlie.
Before we move on, do we want to have designate one person to sign the contract or leave it
I think
as?
we should all sign that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, yep, everybody get down there and sign it.
No, or use the, we can use the stamps.
Yep, that would work fine too.
We have to send an email authorizing that to Rebecca, you, through you, Ryan.
Where are these stamps kept? Where are these stamps kept?
It's not recognized. So I would like to move on. Does the board want to take up the code of conduct tonight or not?
I would like to pass on it tonight.
Oh, I'd love to talk about it, Helen.
Other board members?
That's fine.
I'd be fine with talking about it tonight if you want to.
Okay, Mike?
I'd like a little chance to read over it again, and I wasn't quite sure. I haven't sort of looked to see the initial draft and then the differences between the initial draft and then what was amended on it. So I wouldn't mind having a closer look at that.
Okay. Helen?
Yeah, and also, I was going to bring this up. Thank you for the space here to think about it a little more. May we all please reread the existing policy, which is titled something like violence and harassment in the workplace, or workplace violence and harassment. The last paragraph of that is something which would get repeated in the draft that we have of this policy. That said, the second thing I want to say about it is it's really important that we're all thinking about this now so that people feel safe in meetings and we don't get distracted by.
Oh, Helen, you.
Hey, yeah.
We don't.
Rebecca, can you remove?
Helen doesn't feel safe in a virtual meeting.
Hey, okay. Helen, can you, or Rebecca?
That's all I wanted to say.
All right.
She's removed.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Where are we?
We are, sorry. Jean, okay, the CDBG application for Cape and Islands Housing Rehab and Childcare. There's a letter of support. It's the one that's it's the third part, or the third page in this agenda item. It's dated July 27th, 2021. Are there any questions in regards to this?
No.
No.
Okay.
Do you want me to make a motion?
Go for it.
I move to approve a letter to be written on behalf of the town of Wellfleet in support of the Cape and Islands Housing Rehab and Childcare.
The letter's already written.
Yeah.
So it'd be approved to send.
To approve and sign and send the letter.
Okay.
for the support of the Cape and Islands housing, rehab, and childcare.
And to delegate the chair to sign it.
I was hoping
that-
that the entire board could sign it.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
we are on a deadline. 1 second.
Yeah.
What's the drop dead date?
But I can go in tomorrow morning.
Okay, I just think it's better if the entire
is.
board signs it.
I think so too.
Okay, let's see, what's the date?
Well, we just need a quorum anyways, so as long as 3 people sign it, it can go out on time.
Okay. All right. Can I have a roll call vote? Or was that motion seconded?
Seconded.
Yes,
Okay.
it was seconded. John seconded it.
Okay. So roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, aye.
Michael, aye.
Brian, aye.
Ellen, I.
All right, select board reports. Are there any?
I was just going to mention the dredging event we had that was really nice with everybody in attendance. Thank Bob Wallace for supplying oysters and all the town staff that helped out to make it absolutely beautiful event. We couldn't have wished for better weather and a better view. And thank Senator Sear, Dottie Smith, representative of Representative Peaks, Secretary Keneally and his staff, and all the other harbor masters that came. And I hope our dredging committee and our harbor masters, it's been a very long, tedious process, and it's wonderful to be making progress.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. So, and also thank everybody who worked on that for so long. Any other reports? No, okay. All right, so Charlie, town administrators report.
Ryan, I did have a report.
Oh,
actually.
you did?
Yeah, I
Sorry.
just wanted to reiterate, I don't know if it was mentioned earlier, but that Provincetown is still having a free testing site at on Mayflower Street, it's number 2 Mayflower Street. And I believe it's from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. I'm not sure if I got those hours right, but you can check it on Provincetown website. So if you're having COVID symptoms or had been in contact with anyone who's associated with the outbreak, then I would recommend that.
How long have they continued that for?
Oh, yeah, sorry. That's just going until the end of the month right now. I think it's July 31st, but they may extend it. I can look it up right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I wouldn't be surprised if they extend it with the numbers that.
You can go on to the next subject and I'll just.
Okay. So Charlie, town administrators report.
Oh, thank you, Ryan. Okay, so, as you know, there's a lot of moving parts. Mia has left the employee of the town as our media operations manager, and we're starting a process to look at some alternatives for media operations. There is a company that provides services to Yarmouth, Brewster, and Truro. We're going to be meeting with them, I think this week, next week, just to get some information on services and costs. But we are starting to work on that project. And I would like to thank Senator Sear and Representative Peak, because, being new and interim, I wasn't aware of some of the funding opportunities that were available to the town under this coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund, the new monies that were appropriated last winter. Anyway, Lisa Sauvé and I finished the application process, and we've already received our first allocation under that program for $142,000.
Great.
And there'll be a second allocation next year in the same amount. We do need to work on a plan and how the town will use that. And of course, we will present that at a future select board meeting. I've been working with the Rights of Public Access Committee, a terrific group on a couple of projects with town council. I'll have some more information soon, but I did want to let you know that those meetings are ongoing. We've had 2 meetings on a couple of properties already. And then, really my first couple of months in Wellfleet, I really never left my office, and people would say, how do you like Wellfleet? And I said, I don't know. I've only gone to the town hall, but John Wolf and Ryan Curley and I sort of tag teamed, and we visited a bunch of town properties last week. And then I'm going to continue to get out and visit some of our properties and start to get a better feel for the community. So that's been fun to meet people. We have 2 critical staffing vacancies right now, the building commissioner's position and the DPW superintendent's. We've already advertised the building commissioner position, and we're going to start interviews next week. We're going to interview as they come in. The reality is that people are applying for jobs in other communities, and we don't want to lose what might be a good candidate. So we're going to start those. We've created a small interview team of various town officials to do those processes. As I say, we're just about to issue the advertisement for the DPW superintendent position. So that hopefully will go out sometime next week. Relative to the Route 6 Main Street intersection project, I know Jay had reached out to MassDOT, and I did receive a response from Jay Norton through Jay Norton today. Thank you, Jay. That MassDOT is aware that this date has to be established, and they hope to have a date for that public hearing process within the next 2 weeks. Not necessarily the hearing, but a date for the hearing. But Jay Norton is on top of that. And then I've been working with the Wellfleet Cultural Council, and it appeared that the town had failed to fill out the necessary grant applications for FY21. And thanks to the efforts of the Wellfleet Cultural Council reaching out to the state, we've resolved that issue. We've completed the application, so those monies should be coming to provide services here in Wellfleet. And I am going to be meeting with a couple of members of the Cultural Council sometime soon, just to talk about a few related opportunities. And then I'm going to jump to a number of fiscal financial issues. As you know, the Department of Revenue, the Division of Local Services, has agreed to come to Wellfleet and start an evaluation of all our fiscal financial operations. And those interviews, that process starts tomorrow. We have a series of interviews set up with our critical financial staff and myself. And then going forward, they will want to meet with the members of the Select Board and the chair of the Finance Committee. So that I don't have a date for that meeting yet, but it'll most likely be a couple of weeks out. And then at the conclusion, they will issue a detailed report of findings and recommendations to the Select Board. So anyway, the good news is we've started that process. I've gone through that before. I worked in Brewster, and it's really a good, thorough process, and I think you'll find it's going to be helpful. And then I know I had talked about the giving more frequent reports of the financial management issues that we're working with relative to the management comments and the audits. And Ryan Curley, as your chair, and I have sort of started to talk about a process that we're going to use. We have a couple of more conversations to have on that matter. And depending upon your schedule, we hope to start that at your next meeting. But I will tell you and the public, in the last few weeks, we've spending a lot of time sort of reconciling the stabilization and the OPEB funds. And of course, there's 3 stabilization funds and 1 OPEB fund the town has. And we're really kind of digging deep, going back 2 years. So that effort is pretty robust and is moving along splendidly. We've completed processing all the final payrolls and accounts payable warrants for FY21. Lisa Sauve's been doing that along with Jean Tesson. And then we've established all the encumbrance processes for outstanding invoices. And as you know, from a recent meeting we've solved a number of deficiencies in the FY21 budget through a process with the select board and the finance committee. Thank you, both groups, for meeting with us. I wasn't there, of course, but I understand Lisa Sauve did a good job. And then Lisa has set up a whole new chart of accounts for fiscal year 2022. And she's sent out all that information to all the department heads, boards, and committees, and with some guidance information. And so, you know, our departments and our boards and committees will be receiving monthly accounting reports on expenditures and revenues monthly as we go into the new fiscal year. So that was not to be underestimated. That was a pretty significant effort by Lisa Sauve. And then Lisa and Mary have been working on reviewing all authorized but unissued debt for fiscal 20 and 21. And so that, I think, effort is complete, and they're setting up an appropriate account structure to manage that within our financial system. So that is not a small project either. And then under grant management, they've been creating new account numbers for a variety of new grants that the town has received. And frankly, a few more that you're going to receive. We'll be announcing those soon. And then just a couple of other things that I didn't get into my report that I wanted to mention, that our town clerk, Jennifer, has submitted all of the bylaw amendments from the June 26, 2021 annual town meeting to the AG's office for review. I think that happened yesterday. And I have received a few complaints from citizens about the pay-as-you-throw large size bags. So if anybody's listening, we have been working with our vendor, and there are small and medium-sized bags. Large bags have just been part of this whole production problem and transportation problem throughout the country. But we hope within the next couple of weeks to have some large bags delivered to our, different vendors around town and outside of town. And then I've been working with the recycling committee and the housing trust. They had some questions about account balances, fund balances. And while we haven't come to closure on those two groups, Lisa Sauve and I are working with them to sort of answer their questions. But that's one small piece of a larger puzzle. But they've been very patient, and we appreciate the fact that we've at least had some conversations and given them some information. But we'll catch up with those things sooner or later. So I think that's all I have for the moment. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Helen?
Yeah, 2 questions through you to Charlie. You mentioned that the folks from the financial review folks are going to be interviewing members of the select board. Is that as a group? In other words, are we looking at having this as an agenda item Or are they going to interview each one of us separately, or what does that mean? Members of the select board, please.
Yeah, it's my understanding that they're going to interview you individually.
All five
But
of you.
Yes,
Okay, good. Thank you.
you're
And
welcome.
thank you for these beautiful reports.
Oh, thank you. Well, I got to give some credit to Rebecca too, because she keeps me on task, so.
Yes.
Okay, Mike,
Yeah, Charlie, I was just wondering about the trash bag situation. I just wanted to let everyone know that there is a way to pay for trash that is not in a purple bag. You can pay at the gate. And I'm not sure what the fee is for that, but I think they can be larger bags and black bags. And if we could look into potentially reducing that charge a little bit if it's high during this bag crisis, so that people with large families or whatever aren't put out, because the smaller bags are quite a bit more per gallon of waste. So I've had some complaints as well, and I want people to understand they can go get rid of their trash whether they have a purple bag or not, but it's a fee for dropping.
I'll thank you. That's a good idea. I'll talk to Jay about that tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
any other questions on Charlie's report? Okay, seeing none, topics for future agendas.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, two things. This, let's see, on July 30th, isn't that Friday? The video policy that we sent out into the, universe is due back on July 30th. So may we please have that? It's the video policy, that kept coming back, wackadoo, which I think we should finally be able to pass. And can we have that on the next agenda? The other thing is, Mr. Coakley at the beginning of this meeting anticipated a future concern that I have, an agenda item that I have, which is to figure out formally the relationship with the use of the property next to Max down at the marina. This got brought up. We discussed having some kind of contract or arrangement with them legally. It was pretty big chunk of a set of minutes way back, and it never happened. And I think that we need to have this relationship formalized, because they also had back in the day some garbage
Yeah,
receptacles.
so I think it's a good idea we talk about Max at the pier.
Thank you.
Okay, any others, Helen?
No.
Okay, John?
Yeah, I've wondered, we've had this parking task force for quite some time now. When are we actually going to take up the issue of coming up with a plan for charging for parking, for instance, at the marina?
So
Is that an
John,
appropriate-
the parking task force dissolved at least a year ago, and there is a report that you can have. Maybe I've got it on my computer, but we worked for it on a year and a half, and there is no simple solution. It's expensive. It's only 2 months worth of problems that I have, but there's a whole report available, probably on our town website.
You say it's on the town website? I'm having some internet issues right now.
I could probably dig it up.
It should be available, and if I remember, I should have it on my computer to send it to you. But there was a
Okay.
very good task force that looked into all the possibilities, and there's no simple solution.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, this kind of ties into what John was just talking about. we have the Natural Resources Advisory Board right now is updating their harbor management plan, and the Shellfish Advisory Board is currently in the process of updating the comprehensive shellfish management plan. The Marina Advisory Committee, their charge is basically to advise on planning. I don't think they've ever released a comprehensive plan, and maybe I'm wrong, for the marina operations. So I would just like to put on the agenda requesting a marina comprehensive marina operating plan for assessment, scoping, and management plan of the marina. So they could potentially work with the harbor master and develop a plan going forward. So that parking issue may tie into that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it should.
But just given there's been, quite a few issues at the marina, over the years, and we have a new harbor master, and I think it'd be good to sort of finally get a comprehensive management plan.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, correspondence, and vacancy. Anything that anybody wants to bring up here? Okay, minutes. Okay, the minutes for June 22nd, 2021. I'd be comfortable moving. Has everybody read the amended minutes?
Sort of, and then there's a late, Helen sent another, I don't know if it's the same or different amendments later, like just a little while before the next
Yeah.
meeting. So I wouldn't mind postponing.
So those
those.
ones were for the July 13th. I haven't had a chance to read those myself.
Yeah, me neither.
The June 22nd is different.
The June 22nd one.
Yeah, personally, I would like to postpone, but I can also just, whatever.
Hi, Ryan?
Let's see.
Ryan?
Go ahead, Helen.
Thank you. I would like to postpone too, and I greatly apologize for sending. I offered amendments for both minute dates, and I greatly apologize for sending them so late. I was at the dentist all day, and I only caught this stuff late. I really apologize for that. So can we wait till the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
So if the other board members are so inclined.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay. Are we to adjournment yet?
I so
Are we
moved.
Move to adjourn.
I just
Second.
moved.
Okay, second,
Roll call vote.
Janet, I.
Don, aye.
Michael, aye.
Ryan, aye.
Ellen, I.
All right. Good night, everyone.
I love
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Charlie. Thank
Night
you,
all.
everybody.
Thank you. It's like good night, Moon, for the kids. Good night, Charlie. Good night.